Hello, folks. If you hear a little buzzing noise, it is it's Jules' rock tumbler. And it's on, I don't know where it's plugged in at. It's plugged in right. There we go. Now you won't hear it. Now I'm just waiting on Joe's boys to come up. And I hope Bells will read on the banks of Plum Creek today. They're over at my brother's still, and I need to get over there. I just wanted to get a few things done while the house was quiet. I'm so used to it just being me that it's been very active here, but I love it. It's going to be weird when they leave and it's back to, well, it won't be weird, but it'll be sad. But not too bad, because I got y'all. And thank heavens. Thank you, Lord, for that. And prayers for all of you. And some special prayers for those who have some special circumstances going on. It's coming. This takes a little while. Okay, I got to chapter 3 finally. Okay, and I remember reading this, but I'll read this anyway. A book for girls being wanted by a certain publisher, and I imagine that turned out to be Little Women. Now it's gone away. E-books. They can be nice, but they could also drive you crazy. I'm just waiting on it to come back up. A book for girls being wanted by a certain publisher. She hastily scribbled a little note describing a few scenes and adventures in the lives of herself and sisters. Though boys were more in her line. Go away, bookmark. Okay. Let's see. Now, where did it go? Good grief. By the way, this was called Joe's Last Scrape. And this must have something to do with her helping the family's income by doing her books. How lost my place again? It just went. Oh, come on. Please, please, please come back to where I was. I'm so sorry, y'all. I don't know where I was. Come on. Please, Lord, help me to find my spot. Please, please, please. I'm sorry, y'all. This is crazy. Crazy. Well, I'm just going to start over. Chapter 3, Joe's Last Scrape. The March family had enjoyed a great many surprises in the course of their varied career. Joe's Boys. That's the right one, isn't it? Yeah. Great many surprises in the very career, but the greatest of all was when the ugly duckling turned out to be not a swan, but a golden goose, whose literary eggs found such an unexpected market that in 10 years Joe's wildest and most cherished dream actually came true. How or why it happened, she never clearly understood, but all of a sudden, she found herself famous in a small way, and better still, with a snug little fortune in her pocket to clear away the obstacles of the present and assure the future of her boys. It began during a bad year when everything went wrong at Plumfield. Times were hard. The school dwindled. Jo overworked herself and had a long illness. Laurie and Amy were abroad, and the Bears too proud to ask help, even of those as near and dear as this generous pair. Confined to her room, Jo got desperate over the state of affairs till she fell back upon the long-disused pen as the only thing she could do to help fill in the gaps in the income. Here it is. A book for boys being wanted by a certain publisher. I thought it was the start of a paragraph. That's why I was at the end. A book for girls being wanted by a certain publisher. She hastily scribbled a little story describing a few scenes and adventures in the lives of herself and sisters. And I said, that's what was Little Women, I'm sure. Though boys were more in her line, and with very slight hopes of success, sent it out to seek its fortune. Things always went by contraries with Jo. Her first book, labored over for years and launched full of the high hopes and ambitious dreams of youth, foundered on its voyage, though the wreck continued to float long afterward, to the profit of the publisher at least. The hastily written story, sent away with no thought beyond the few dollars it might bring, sailed with a fair wind and a wise pilot at the helm into public favor, and came home heavily laden with an unexpected cargo of gold and glory. A more astonished woman probably never existed than Josephine Bear when her little ship came into port, with flags flying, cannon that had been silent before now booming gaily, and better than all, many kind faces rejoicing with her, many friendly hands grasping hers with cordial congratulations. After that, it was plain sailing, and she merely had to load her ships and send them off on prosperous trips to bring home stores of comfort for all she loved and labored for. I like the analogy of the ships in her books. The fame she never did quite accept, for it takes very little fire to make a great deal of smoke nowadays, and notoriety is not real glory. The fortune she could not doubt and gratefully receive, though it was not half so large as a generous world reported it to be. The tide having turned continued to rise, and floated the family comfortably into a snug harbor, where the older members could rest secure from storms, and whence the younger ones could launch their boats for the voyage of life. All manner of happiness, peace, and plenty came in those years to bless the patient waiters, hopeful workers, and devout believers in the wisdom and justice of Him who sends disappointment, poverty, and sorrow to try the love of human hearts and make success the sweeter when it comes. The world saw the prosperity, and kind souls rejoiced over the improved fortunes of the family. But the success Jo valued most, the happiness that nothing could change or take away, few knew much about. It was the power of making her mother's last years happy and serene. To see the burden of care laid down forever, the weary hands at rest, the dear face untroubled by any anxiety, and the tender heart free to pour itself out in the wise charity which was its delight. As a girl, Jo's favorite plan had been in a room where Marmee could sit in peace and enjoy herself after her hard, heroic life. Now the dream had become a happy fact, and Marmee sat in her pleasant chamber with her every comfort and luxury about her. How wonderful. Loving daughters to wait on her as infirmities increased, a faithful mate to lean upon, and grandchildren to brighten the twilight of life with their dutiful affection. A very precious time to all, for she rejoiced as only mothers can in the good fortunes of their children. She had lived to reap the harvest she sowed, had seen prayers answered, hopes blossom, good gifts bear fruit, peace and prosperity bless the home she had made, and then, like some brave, patient angel whose work was done, turned her face heavenward, glad to rest. This was the sweet and sacred side of the change, but it had its droll and thorny one, as all things have in this curious world of ours. After the first surprise, I know this word, but it can't come to me. Incredulous, but that's not it. And joy, which came to Jo with the ingratitude of human nature, she soon tired of renown and began to resent her loss of liberty, for suddenly the admiring public took possession of her and all her affairs, past, present, and to come. Strangers demanded to look at her, question, advise, warn, congratulate, and drive her out of her wits by well-meant but very wearisome attentions. If she declined to open her heart to them, they reproached her. If she refused to endow her pet charities, relieve private wants, or sympathize with every ill and trial known to humanity, she was called hard-hearted, selfish, and haughty. If she found it impossible to answer the piles of letters sent her, she was neglectful of her duty to the admiring public. And if she preferred the privacy of home to the pedestal upon which she was requested to pose, the airs of literary people were freely criticized. She did her best for the children, they being the public for whom she wrote, and labored stoutly to supply the demand, always in the mouths of voracious youth. More stories, more right away. Her family objected to this devotion at their expense, and her health suffered, but for a time she gratefully offered herself up on the altar of juvenile literature, feeling that she owed a good deal to the little friends in whose sight she had found favor after 20 years of effort. But time came when her patience gave out, and wearying of being a lion, she became a bear in nature as in name, and returning to her den, growled awfully when ordered out. Her family enjoyed the fun and had small sympathy with her trials, but Jo came to consider it the worst scrape of her life, for liberty had always been her dearest possession, and it seemed to be fast going from her. Living in a lantern soon loses its charm, and she was too old, too tired, and too busy to like it. She felt she had done all that could reasonably be required of her. When autographs, photographs, and autobiographical sketches had been sown, broadcast over the land, when artists had taken her home in all aspects, and reporters had taken her in the grim one she always assumed on these trying occasions, when a series of enthusiastic boarding schools had ravaged her grounds for trophies, and a steady stream of amiable pilgrims had worn her doorsteps with their respectful feet, when servants left after a week's trial of the bell that rang all day, when her husband was forced to guard her at meals and the boys to cover her retreat out of back windows on certain occasions, when enterprising guests walked in unannounced at unfortunate moments. A sketch of one day may perhaps explain the state of things, offer some excuse for the unhappy woman, and give a hint to the autograph fiend now rampant in the land, for it is a true tale. There ought to be a law to protect unfortunate authors, said Mrs. Joe one morning soon after Emile's arrival, when the mail brought her an unusually large and varied assortment of letters. To me, it's a more vital subject than international copyright, for time is money, peace is health, and I lose both with no return, but less respect for my fellow creatures and a wild desire to fly into the wilderness, since I cannot shut my doors even in free America. Lion hunters are awful when in search of their prey. If they could change places for a while, it would do them good. They'd see what bores they were when they do themselves the honor of calling to express their admiration for our charming work, quoted Ted, with a bow to his parent, now frowning over 12 requests for more autographs. I have made up my mind on one point, said Mrs. Joe with great firmness. I will not answer this kind of letter. I've sent at least 6 to this boy, and he probably sells them. This girl writes from a seminary, and if I send her one, all the other girls will at once write for more. I'll begin by saying they know they intrude, and that I am, of course, annoyed by these requests, but they venture to ask because I like boys, or they like books, or it's only the one. Emerson and Whittier put these things in the wastepaper basket, and though only a literary nursery maid who provides moral pap for the young, I will follow their illustrious example, for I shall have no time to eat or sleep if I try to satisfy these dear unreasonable children. And Mrs. Joe swept away the entire batch with a sigh of relief. I'll open the others and let you eat your breakfast in peace. That's what she needed, an assistant or 2 or 5. Let you eat your breakfast in peace, Lieb muttered. My mother, I guess, and I'm probably screwed the Lieb. Said Rob, who often acted as her secretary. Here's one from the South. And breaking an imposing seal, he read, Madam, as it has pleased heaven to bless your efforts with a large fortune, I feel no hesitation in asking you to supply funds to purchase a new communion service for our church. To whatever denomination you belong, you will, of course, respond with liberality to such a request. Respectfully yours, Mrs. Z.Y. Xavier. Send a civil refusal, dear. All I have to give must go to feed and clothe the poor at my gates. That is my thank offering for success. Go on, answered his mother with a grateful glance about her happy home. A literary youth of 18 proposes that you put your name to a novel he has written, and after the first edition, your name is to be taken off and his put on. There's a cool proposal for you. I guess you won't agree to that in spite of your soft-heartedness towards most of the young scribblers. Couldn't be done. Tell him so kindly, and don't let him send the manuscript. I have 7 on hand now, and barely time to read my own, said Mrs. Joe, pensively fishing a small letter out of the slop bowl and opening it with care because the downhill address suggested that a child wrote it. I will answer this myself. A little sick girl wants a book, and she shall have it. But I can't write sequels to all the rest to please her. I should never come to an end if I tried to suit these voracious little Oliver Twists, clamoring for more. If y'all know Oliver Twist, if you know the story. More, please. What next, Robin? This is short and sweet. Dear Mrs. Bear, I am now going to give you my opinion of your works. I have read them all many times and call them first-rate. Please go ahead. Your admirer, Billy Babcock. And here come my kids. Now that's what I like. Billy is a man of sense and a critic worth having, since he had read my works many times before expressing his opinion. He asked for no answer, So send my thanks and regards. And I'm going to stop right here because I know what's coming. But I'll get Bells, if she will, and I'm sure she will, to read to you folks the other story, On the Banks of Plum Creek. Be sweet, don't be ugly. Love you. Bye.